Bills GM Brandon Beane on the James Cook extension. Joining us on the Worcester Hotline, Scott Pianowski of Yahoo Sports. Some fantasy football chatter. Cook's signing, of course, in the fantasy football community would be sought as good news, I think. There's a lot of aggression conversation on his touchdowns. We'll get to the Bills fantasy forecast as we welcome in our friend, Scott Pianowski, who joins us all the time. Years and years now. Scott, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. How are you?
We're good. We're good. You know, we're the Buffalo life. Gear up for another season. Get excited about a really great team, an exciting team, and we'll worry about. I guess we'll worry about January in January, even though we sometimes worry about it in September. So it's Bill's life.
For sure, and it's been such a fun fantasy team. Obviously, Josh Allen coming off an MVP year. You mentioned Cook had the 18 touchdowns. He's a tough guy to figure because he only had 6 the previous season. We know Josh Allen is always going to have a lot of goal line equity. They like their other backs behind Cook, even though they did extend him. And then the receiver room, there are a lot of good players on this offense. I don't know that any of the receivers are ever going to be great. You would hope that maybe Dalton Kincaid in the third season, or the third season for him, Keon Coleman in his second season. Obviously, he started as a basketball player in college. Maybe it takes time to develop there. It's just interesting. You think, who are the great quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Lamar Jackson has so many things to play with, and they've added some pieces in Kansas City, and Jalen Hurts has A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. I'd like to see, since Diggs left, and I like Khalil Shakir, I do, but I would just love to see Josh Allen playing with one of those alpha top 10 receivers, and obviously that guy isn't on the roster right now.
Sensitive subject sometimes around here, Scott. That's okay, though. Allen, I was looking at I wonder what you think about his age and his timeline here, and I looked at an all-time great quarterback, and for me it was a look at, let's hope he ages like Steve Young. Steve Young, it took Steve Young a long time to get to his peak, but from age 31 to 36, Steve Young was super athletic and super good. And, here in Buffalo, Allen's not yet 30, but we're wondering how many prime years there will be and how many years he'll be jumping over guys. And I wonder if you have a thought on that. From a fantasy standpoint and just a football playing standpoint, are primes for quarterbacks, can the athletic ones, can the guys like Josh extend those farther than you might think?
It's a great question. And we did a piece earlier this week about whether Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen should be the number one fantasy quarterback. And I did line up with Jackson because I just thought he had more help. But if you're going to line up behind Allen, you have to point to the rushing touchdowns. He had 12 last season, 15 the previous season. And in the first 5 seasons, he was active in that area, but it was never double digit. It was 8 and 9 and 7 and stuff like that. So it's always that question of, well, he's your franchise player. He's your most important player. How much do you want him running? How many hits do you want him to take? I realize there are some kneel downs in there, but he gets over 100 carries every year. He's obviously the most athletic guy on the field, and he feels like he can do anything. He's been remarkably durable. Let's hope that continues. But sometimes I would say, Josh, we're up 17 in the fourth quarter. You don't have to take on an extra hit. You don't have to lower that shoulder. You love the competitiveness. And I realize when these guys get on the field, sometimes that extra gear kicks in. They're not thinking about 3 months down the road or 3 years down the road. They're thinking about getting that first down. They're thinking about winning that play. You wonder, though, at what point do they say, you know what, we need you in January and February. We need you healthy then. So let's just, dial it back a little bit. And you see this a lot of times. This is a discussion a lot of times in the playoffs that people like to bet the rushing props on the quarterbacks, because sometimes the idea is that, well, maybe you wouldn't make that run in September, but now it's January. There's no tomorrow. If you lose, you might as well just let it all go and maybe play a little bit more recklessly. It's a double-edged sword, because you don't want to take out his instincts. You don't want to take out what makes Josh Allen great, but you want him to play well into his 30s, maybe even up to age 40, stuff like that. We've seen quarterbacks can do that in recent seasons, and I just wonder if being a little bit more discretionary with that running might be a good idea.
Scott Pianowski on the Worcester Hotline. All right, Scott, so the fantasy football world, we're well into drafting season. I've got a vampire league on Sunday. I've got some dynasty leagues that have drafted, some redraft leagues that are coming up. I feel like every year we're talking about a beginning of season story about drafts. And do you have anything like that it is this year? If you're looking at your redraft leagues, what is the look? Running backs at the top, a really deep group of elite receivers? You can get 2 good receivers even all the way into the second round. Like, what is your overarching look at the world of fantasy football drafts as it sits right now in mid-August?
Yeah, to me, the big question is that last year was defined by, I know Christian McCaffrey, managers don't want to hear this, but last year was defined by the running backs were remarkably durable overall. And there's a lot of things going on there. Not as many bell cows. The defenses have gotten lighter as they're looking to defend the pass. And they're almost begging the offense to say, okay, well, we're going to give you these running yards if you want it. And the offense has said, fine, let's get a couple of backs going. Let's get some power backs going. And last year, all those backs who changed teams, right? Barkley to better situations. Barkley goes to Philadelphia, he smashes. Henry goes to Baltimore, 5.9 yards a carry and a bushel of touchdowns. Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay, and he was terrific. So the idea is, are you okay with Derrick Henry in his 30s? Are you okay with Saquon Barkley after 482 touches? Are you okay with McCaffrey after a season where he went from 21 touchdowns to 0? He only played 4 games last year. He's one of the toughest calls. So there's been a little bit of, I think, of a correction, maybe an overcorrection, because the running backs were so good last year and having an impact. It's gone a little bit back to what fantasy used to be, where you just went to your draft and you're just looking for a couple of running backs early. We'll worry about the other positions. And as you mentioned, wide receiver, I don't think it's deep for the entire draft, but when you're looking 25, 30, 35 guys deep, and I look at what's available maybe at wide receiver 15 and what's available at, say, wide receiver 32, that looks pretty flat to me. I don't think you're doing that much worse if you get the 27th receiver than if you get the 18th receiver. A lot of similarities there. So I think 0 RB is not the strategy where you don't take any running backs early. I don't think many people are doing that now. I think most people have accepted that you either need that hero RB, you need one of them you can hang your hat on, or maybe you need 2 of them. I've seen a lot more people go with a robust running back room thinking, okay, maybe it's almost like a hero wide receiver where you get that one really good one. And then you think, okay, I'll just circle back and I'll get Devonta Smith. I'll circle back and get Jalen Waddle. I'll circle back and get George Pickens, guys like that. And then the names you like could be different. But I agree that second and third tier receiver looks really deep, and maybe we don't have to attack receiver as proactively as we might have in previous seasons.
Scott, there was a time where you could make a case for Gronk number 1, right? Because he was so far and away at tight end. How do you feel about tight end for that? Is there a hero tight end build where there are how many you would consider for this? Like 3, 4? Because everybody else is just kind of in the mix? Like, what's the number on tight end?
It's probably 3 to me. And it's funny, there's only one guy, one vanity tight end, I would say, that I'm kind of circling, and that's George Kittle. Now, I'm worried with Bowers that team wants to run the ball like crazy. Terrific as he is, and Geno Smith is an upgrade over what they had last year, but I'm okay with Bowers. Trey McBride, I have a problem with. He hasn't scored touchdowns, and I just think that's a Kyler Murray problem. He's undersized. He doesn't see the red area very well. They tried really hard, and finally McBride got in the end zone, I think, in December last year, but he had a very long streak of tons of volume and no touchdowns. I think that's because of his quarterback. Kittle has always been an efficiency darling. Generally doesn't even get to 100 targets, but Debo's gone. We'll see what Jennings winds up being. He kind of came out of nowhere. Ayuk won't be ready opening day. Pearsall, second-year player, his rookie year was kind of a mess because of what happened before the season. So I think this might be the year Kittle needs 110 or 115 targets, and he's proven he can do it even with less than 100. If I'm going with a vanity tight end build, it's probably him. If I don't go in that direction, I really like Tucker Kraft. He's maybe tight end 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. And he's actually kind of similar to Kittle in that really good efficiency. Nobody has had over 100. I think 100 is the max target count since Devontae Adams left town. We knew Green Bay likes to shuttle their guys in and out, but I think Kraft has made the case for more volume, and they designed touchdowns for him. They designed splash plays for him. He had excellent yards after the catch last year. I think 14.1 yards per reception. So if I don't go early on tight end, Kraft's a target. I also think Jake Ferguson. I don't know if Dallas will run the ball. I think their defense will probably fall apart. Dak's there, 2 really good receivers, but nothing after those guys. I think Ferguson might be ready for maybe 750 or 800 yards and like 6 or 7 touchdowns, which a tight end would probably land you in the top 6 or 7.
Scott Pianowski, Yahoo Sports on the Western Hotline. Scott, I want to ask you about 2 teams that had great offenses and lost their coordinators. And if you think there's any blip on the way for Tampa or Detroit, because they both have great passing games, dynamic runners, a lot of good receiving weapons, and Ben Johnson left and Liam Cohen left. Do you feel like they'll be just fine? They'll pick up where they left off?
That's a great question. It really involves 4 teams because, it also opens up a conversation of what we expect from Jacksonville, what we expect from Chicago. I'm least of all worried about the Lions because when you have a veteran quarterback, he's almost like de facto offensive coordinator too. What Jared Goff going to forget what he likes to do with Ross St. Brown, the routes they like to run, the looks they like to get. Phil Porter's into his 3rd season. Jameson Williams had a breakout year, but maybe there's even more room for growth. Gibbs spread his wings last year when Montgomery got hurt. I realized Ragnow has retired. But I think Detroit, the thing with Detroit is that they were the top offense last year in points. They scored 100 more points than they did the previous season. They'll probably regress back to what they were in 2023, a top 5 offense. Maybe they lose 70, 80, 100 points just because they were so efficient last year. So they may say, oh, wow, they really missed Ben Johnson. It's just hard to be that great year over year, but I think they'll be a top 5 offense pretty easily and not worried about drafting their guys. More worried about the Tampa Bay situation. Baker Mayfield, and it's a fun story, and I'm happy for him. I mean, the guy got run out of town so Cleveland could dance with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that didn't work out, but happy to see Mayfield get back in the NFL and get a starting job, and last year have a career season. But when a career year happens that late in somebody's trajectory, it just makes us nervous. Cohen was a big part of that. Sounds like Godwin won't be ready opening day. I don't know how sticky Baker Mayfield's running from last year will be. So I think the regression monster hits him hard. And because quarterback is so deep, and he's in that kind of that quarterback 6 to quarterback 10 bucket, I just rather shop rounds later where you can get in. The names are different for everybody. Yep. Maybe you like Drake May. Maybe you like J.J. McCarthy. Maybe you like Penix in Atlanta. There's so many different guys. I mentioned Prescott, who I think is a good value. So you can do really well on that tier. Find the guys that you like. Maybe draft a couple of those guys. I'm not going to draft Mayfield.
One more guy I want for you on the Young. Any interest in Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley? I feel like I'm reading a lot about how they, if nothing else, they have a connection. Traylon Burks, of course, hurt, and he won't play for the Titans. He's done. So Tennessee doesn't have much, but could they lean into that enough, and could game script be enough where you feel like those two might be worth looking into?
Well, definitely Ridley, and I talked about how that, anywhere from 15, 17, 18 wide receiver into the 30s is pretty flat. Calvin Ridley's the target for me, the boring veteran, right? He's been around. He's kind of a sneaky old player now, but he was productive last year with a terrible quarterback room. All we're asking Cam Ward to be is better than what they had last year. I don't think that's a big step for him to hurdle. Tony Pollard also, with Tyjae Spears hurt now, I think he'll get more work than maybe people realize. I think the Titans are going to be, maybe they're like this year's Panthers, right, where they end up, and I don't know if it will start slow like Carolina did last year. By the end of the last year, felt pretty good about Hubbard. Bryce Young played pretty well. Thielen gave us a useful season. Maybe that's the model. Maybe Pollard is this year's Hubbard. Maybe Thielen, and I know he's a totally different type of player than Ridley, but maybe those guys comp, and maybe Cam Ward can kind of have the season Bryce Young had, and next year we're talking about Cam Young as a sleeper. I don't think Tennessee is going to be a dumpster fire by any means, and the 2 guys I'm circling there are Pollard and Ridley.
Finally, Scott, big news for Yahoo, adding guillotine formats. Is this Guillotine's moment finally breaking through?
Excited. It's a really fun format. And I really like it because I love, so much Jeremy of fantasy's upside. Yeah. The great thing about Guillotine is it's floor. Right? Beat one team. It's be good right away. Don't draft guys you have to wait for. And then you have the hardest waiver wire choices every week. Because, and I'm still not really sure what the right ratio is between, oh my God, these superstars are available, I got to get them now, I get them for the full season, or I got to be patient because there's every week the waiver wire is like grass, it's going to grow back. It's a fun format. I can't say I've perfected it yet. I've run deep in both of my Guillotine leagues that I've run the last couple of years, but I haven't won one yet. So it's a blast. It's on Yahoo now. So it's like anything else. You want to have variety in your diet. You want to have variety in your portfolio. I think you should have variety in your fantasy life, and hopefully a Yahoo Guillotine style league will be part of your portfolio this year. It's really a lot of fun.
For sure. Scott Pianowski, Yahoo Sports. Thanks, Scott.
My pleasure.
We'll talk to Scott again, of course, during the regular season. We always do. Make sure we touch base with them